stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it.
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom. We're just in the build-up now to the first Prime Minister's question of the year. And it's been a quiet year so far, Andrew.
Extraordinary. So if the Prime Minister was hoping to do yet another reset, he's been blown way off course by events in South America and the continuing bellicose noises from the White House over the fate of Greenland. Despite the Prime Minister and all those European leaders gathering yesterday...
The coalition of the witless.
Yeah.
I mean the willing.
Yes. Starmer doesn't really give a fig what they think. So currently we've got the Hilary Benn, the Northern Ireland Secretary, taking questions. That is a contentious area at the moment, of course, because of the legacy legislation going through, which potentially is putting servicemen and women who were there in Northern Ireland during the Troubles in the 1970s and 60s liable to prosecution.
It does feel like some of the issues that we've believed have been settled for some decades now have suddenly become unsettled again. Things like the ownership of Greenland, or whether or not Venezuela is a sovereign state, or Northern Ireland settlement.
Yeah, and
turbulent times.
And very turbulent times, and Northern Ireland in particular, I think, has got all sorts of issues there. I know David Davis, who's often been on this programme, the Tory MP, he's in leading the fight to stop this legacy legislation being overturned. And it should be, because it's shameful, frankly.
Yeah.
Because the IRA killers, the terrorists, they all got a comfort letter from Blair as part of the peace process, which was horrible, but I understood it, to get peace done.
To draw a line under it.
To get peace done. So they are still exempt from prosecution, but the soldiers who are doing their job, defending Queen and country, are not. So the Prime Minister's taken his seat. He won't know what Badenoch will go on today, because it could be cost of living,
could be the pubs that we've been talking about.
The EU reset, which is the great British Brexit betrayal, the great sellout.
There are lots of foreign questions she could go on, but the problem for her will be, firstly, it's not particularly a vote winner, and secondly, she agrees with the Prime Minister on Ukraine, for example, probably takes a similar stance on Greenland, so it's not really an area of disagreement, I would think.
Yeah, and also the point I make is she needs to attack him on an area where there is clear blue water between the Conservative Party and the Labour government, and there's very few votes in foreign policy.
Well,
perhaps cost of living?
Yes, perhaps cost of living. We could see a rise in unemployment from the spring as the new minimum wage kicks in, and various other changes. That's a possibility, but it's not an easy one for her, because there have not been many domestic stories since the last Prime Minister's question. So perhaps she'll go on a variety of different issues. Of course, she could go on defence spending, which has not risen enough yet.
No, and it's going to take some time for it to rise too. The Speaker, Lindsay Hall's on his feet, so I think we are now beginning Prime Minister's questions. Indeed we are. We'll leave it to Tom and Gloria.
Colleagues had a happy Christmas. It probably feels quite a long time ago now, but not for reform, of course, because today is the day that they celebrate Christmas in Russia. Mr. Speaker, on Monday I visited Reading, where I met with people who will benefit from the first freeze in rail fares for 30 years. Mr. Speaker, that's on top of other measures we're taking to tackle the cost of living, £150 off energy bills, more free breakfast clubs and raising the minimum wage. And there's much more to come this year, Mr. Speaker, as we turn the corner. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I stood side by side with our European and American allies and President Zelensky at the Coalition of the Willing meeting in Paris. Mr. Speaker, we made real progress on security guarantees, which are vital for securing a just and lasting peace. Along with President Macron and President Zelensky, we agreed a declaration of intent on the deployment of forces in the event of a peace deal. Mr. Speaker, we will set out the details in a statement at the earliest opportunity. I will keep the House updated as the situation develops, and were troops to be deployed under the declaration signed, I would put that matter to the House for a vote. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in the House, I had further such meetings later today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Leaseholders in my constituency and across the country are being fleeced by freeholders and managing agents. And they need relief from both, and we need to end the feudal leasehold system. So could the Prime Minister confirm when the leasehold and common hold reform bill will be coming to Parliament?
I thank her for raising this important issue. We are taking serious action to deliver homes the country needs and provide homeowners with greater rights, powers and protections. We will publish the draft bill as soon as possible, and I'll update the House. More protections, of course, are already coming this year because we passed the Renters' Rights Bill, stronger protection for 9 million renters, abolishing no-fault evictions. That's the change we're delivering. And who voted against it? Tories and Reform.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, may I welcome the Prime Minister's efforts to advance peace in Ukraine and his joint statement on Greenland. The last few days have seen significant international events. The US operation in Venezuela, threats towards Greenland, and an agreement to put British troops on the ground in Ukraine. So it is frankly astonishing that the Prime Minister is not making a full statement to Parliament today. No Prime Minister, Labour or Conservative, has failed to make a statement to the House in person after committing to the deployment of British troops. His comments about making a statement in due course, quite frankly, are not good enough. It shows a fundamental lack of respect for all of us here and the people we represent. Mr. Speaker, the US is Britain's closest military ally. However, we are clear that the sovereignty of Greenland is sacrosanct. So can the Prime Minister tell us what influence is he bringing to bear with the US administration to ensure that is respected?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me be very clear about what was agreed yesterday, because military plans were drawn up some months ago and I've updated the House in relation to that. Yesterday was a political declaration that sits under those military plans. If there were to be deployment, there would have to be a legal instrument. Mr. Speaker, deployment would only be after a ceasefire to support Ukraine's capabilities, to conduct deterrent operations and to construct and protect military hubs. Mr. Speaker, there will be a statement to the House at the earliest opportunity. There could hardly be an opportunity. They claim they want to know about this and they're trying to shout me down. Mr. Speaker, in relation to the House, if there were a decision to deploy under the agreement that was signed yesterday, then I would put that matter to this House for a debate beforehand and for a vote on that deployment. That is consistent with recent practice, and I'll adhere to that.
Mr. Speaker, why is today not the earliest opportunity? The truth truth is, the Prime Minister does not want everybody in this House to be able to ask him questions. So he leaves it just to Prime Minister's questions half an hour. On Monday, at least his Foreign Secretary stood up for 2 hours and 15 minutes. You know, it was a non-event, but at least she did that. He is scared of us being able to ask him questions. Yes. 6 questions. Yes, he's here.
Please. I've also requested that we do need an early statement. This House should always be informed first. So I don't like the chantering. Let the questions continue.
Well, one of them asked that he is here. He's got no choice but to be here for Prime Minister's questions. That's why he's here. If he could skip this, we know he would do. But back to the matter at hand, Mr. Speaker. We all agree, all of us here agree, I think well, most of us here agree, that NATO is the bedrock of our security. The future of Greenland is of fundamental importance to the future of the alliance. And I am sure that the Prime Minister agrees that it is essential for NATO leaders, including and especially the US, to meet. Will the Prime Minister call for an urgent meeting of NATO leaders?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, she says she wants to hear about Ukraine. She's got 6 questions. She's not even asking a second question about what we did yesterday. She's got the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, in relation...
Sorry, can I help the Prime Minister? You don't need to worry about the responsibility of the questions of the opposition. That's the...
Mr. Speaker, NATO is the single most important and effective military alliance the world has ever seen. In the 18 months we've been in power, I've done everything within my ability to strengthen NATO. We had one of the strongest NATO meetings last year, the summit, where we had more members of NATO and more unity. When I arrived back to the House to make a statement, which of course she asked for, her position was I shouldn't have missed PMQs, I should have empty-chaired the NATO summit. That's how serious she is about NATO, Mr. Speaker.
You didn't answer the question, Mr. Speaker. I asked him if he would call for an urgent meeting of NATO leaders. We can all see that the situation is moving rapidly. I also note that he has still not had a call with President Trump. That is concerning 4 days after the events in Venezuela. But yesterday, he announced that Britain and France had signed, he says, a political agreement to put troops on the ground in the event of a peace deal in Ukraine. So given the Prime Minister is not making a statement about that deployment of British troops abroad, one of the most serious decisions a government and a parliament can take, irrespective of what he says, can he at least confirm how many troops would be sent to Ukraine and whether they would be in a combat role?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I was with NATO allies yesterday, all day, in which we were discussing security in Europe, in particular security guarantees for Ukraine, and we made significant progress. And I'm glad that she has welcomed that. Of course, I will speak to President Trump. I spoke to his senior advisors yesterday. We were with them all day. But Mr. Speaker, she asked me about the deployment. We released the statement yesterday. It's clear from that, but I will be clear with the House that there would only be deployment after a ceasefire. It would be to support Ukraine's capabilities, it would be to conduct deterrence operations, and to construct and protect military hubs. The number will be determined in accordance with our military plans, which we are drawing up and looking to other members to support. So the number I will put before the House before we were to deploy. But I'll do more than that. If we went as far as a legal instrument to deploy, which would be necessary, I would then have a debate in this House so all members could know exactly what we're doing, make their points of view, and then we would have a vote in this House on the issue, which to my mind is the proper procedure in a situation such as this.
Mr. Speaker, it is clear that the Prime Minister either does not have the detail or does not want to give us the detail. Yes. But this is important. He should be calling an urgent meeting of NATO leaders. He should have spoken to President Trump by now. This is important because if any such peace deal is breached, we would be in direct conflict with Russia. If the Prime Minister is committing troops, he must give more detail on how he intends to ensure our armed forces are fully resourced. Before the budget, the Prime Minister said it was his ambition to spend 3% on defence in the next Parliament. That could be as late as 2034. It is time to move from ambition to commitment. We have now had the budget. So can the Prime Minister now tell us, in what year will the UK spend 3% of GDP on defence?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, just on this serious issue she puts to me in relation to security guarantees and the American role and our dialogue with the Americans, I can assure the House I spoke to President Trump twice over the Christmas period in relation to this specific issue, along with members of the E3, along with European allies. That has been a constant course of our discussion. There's no question of acting on this without full discussion with the Americans, and their senior negotiators were there at President Trump's request yesterday and on his instructions, and they were talking to him during the course of yesterday as we negotiated. So to assure the House, because it is a serious position she's putting to me, on the question of security guarantees, there is nothing between the UK and the US, and we've been constantly discussing this over many, many weeks and months. We've made huge progress. I have personally spoken to President Trump about it on 2 occasions since we were last in this House. I do want to reassure her and the House in relation to that really important issue. In relation to defence spend, I'm proud that we're investing to keep our country safe, that we have increased the defence spend. That's provided for in the budget. It's the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War, and that means, Mr. Speaker, better kit, better housing for our forces, and better defence as an engine for growth. Mr. Speaker, that does compare to their record. Ben Wallace, who was on the radio this morning, the longest-serving Conservative Defence Secretary, admitted that on their watch the armed services had been, in his words, hollowed out. And our defence.
Mr. Cartledge, you expect a lot, I expect something back, and that's silence. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, they shout shame. I'll pass that on to Ben Wallace. Mr. Speaker, the defence spending that we've put in place is 3 years earlier than the unfunded plan that they left behind at the last election.
Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, I heard what... Oh, wait for it. What Ben Wallace said was that spending had fallen under all governments. 3%, the last time, Mr. Speaker, the last time spending was at 3% was under a Conservative government. And yes, while we welcome the increase, something that we supported, can I remind the House that this is a man who sat in the shadow cabinet and tried to make Prime Minister a man who said we shouldn't even be in NATO at all. So I don't need to take any lectures from him. The world is changing. We need to spend more on defence. He did not answer the question about when we would get to 3%, yet he knows up until 2031 how much he's going to be spending on welfare. He doesn't know. That's in the Red Book. The Red Book has no money allocated for defence. We need to move from ambition to commitment. And, Mr. Speaker, this is important because this isn't just about money. If the Prime Minister is deploying troops to Ukraine, those troops need to know that we have their backs. Last week, 7 former SAS commanders, 7 former SAS commanders warned that Labour's Northern Ireland Troubles Bill will wreck our special forces. Not me, that's the SAS. In November, 9 retired 4-star generals warned that his bill was a direct threat to national security. And even his own Northern Ireland Veterans Commissioner has said our veterans are being treated worse than terrorists. So, Mr. Speaker, is it not madness to be putting veterans in the dock for serving their country at the same time he is deploying today's soldiers into Ukraine?
Mr. Speaker, that was embarrassing. She said that Ben Wallace was talking about all government. They were in power for 14 years and they hollowed out our armed forces. Copyright Ben Wallace. Secondly, she talks about the shadow cabinet. She has in her shadow cabinet a shadow attorney general who is advising Abramovich at the same time as we are imposing sanctions on Russia and trying to use that money to support Ukraine. How can someone sit in her shadow cabinet advising someone trying to escape sanctions and pretend that their policy is to support us on sanctions? And Mr. Speaker, when it comes to Northern Ireland, they are the party that gave immunity to IRA terrorists, terrorists who killed British soldiers. Their flawed act was struck down by the courts, which left our veterans with no legal protection whatsoever. We're introducing a fair and transparent process with a package of rights and protections for our veterans. And Mr. Speaker, there is no equivalence between our armed forces who fought bravely in Northern Ireland and terrorist groups. And if the Leader of the Opposition wants to go back, if her position is, to their old flawed legislation and give immunity to the IRA, she should stand up now and say so.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by talking about the Shadow Attorney General. Yes. Yeah. Do they know what the Shadow Attorney General is doing? He is defending veterans pro bono against the actions of this government. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we will defend those who defended us. But why don't we talk about the actual Attorney General who is sitting in Cabinet, the man who defended Jerry Adams, the man who's trying to bring Shamima Begum back into the country, the man who is helping to surrender the Chagos Islands. I will take our Shadow Attorney General every day of the week against his Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, we protect our veterans. I want the Prime Minister to know we protect our veterans. What he is doing to veterans is disgraceful. But this is serious, Mr. Speaker. I don't want the House to be under any illusions. I do not want the House to be under any illusions. The Prime Minister should know that we will absolutely support any efforts to help bring peace to Ukraine. We will work with him to ensure NATO remains the bedrock of our security. But we cannot write a blank check when he is also surrendering the Chagos Islands, surrendering our veterans to lawfare, and surrendering to his backbenchers by prioritising welfare handouts over defence spending, as if the world has not become more dangerous. So, Mr. Speaker, isn't it time the Prime Minister changed course and for once put the British national interest first?
Mr. Speaker, she talks about the Shadow Attorney General. Of course I accept that lawyers have to represent all sorts of clients. Of course I accept that principle. The question is whether the Shadow Attorney General can sit in the Shadow Cabinet when the party opposite says it supports us on sanctions. We want the money from Chelsea Football Club to go to Ukraine. I'm not sure whether that's her position. If it is her position, presumably it's something they discuss in the Shadow Cabinet, advised by a Shadow Attorney General who is representing the very man whose money we want to send to Ukraine. If she can't see the conflict of interest in that, then she shows no judgment and no leadership at all. The same old. It's a new year, but the Leader of the Opposition's got absolutely nothing to offer the country. She is totally irrelevant. Nobody is listening to her. Mr. Speaker, this is the year when on this side we turn a corner, people benefit from the decisions we made, £150 off energy bills, freezing rail fares and lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. We're turning the corner and there's much more to come.
Well, the Prime Minister can keep the good news going because he's rightly made house building and economic growth key priorities for his government. By giving the go-ahead today to the Chesterfield-Staveley regeneration route, he'll help us to deliver 1,500 houses and 5,700 jobs on land that was previously coal mining and brownfield industrial land. It's not just a road, it is a growth project. So will the Prime Minister keep the good news coming and tell us that he'll support the Chesterfield-Staveley regeneration route?
Well, can I thank him for that question? I know that he's working hard on this scheme. As he knows, land investigation works are currently taking place to help establish the final costs. The Road Minister is looking closely at the scheme alongside about 40 others. We will prioritise schemes that deliver faster journeys and unlock new homes and jobs.
Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I wish you a Happy New Year and everyone in this House? And can I welcome the progress made on security guarantees for Ukraine yesterday? Mr. Speaker, Geoffrey Robertson, KC, is a respected authority on international law. He's also the head of the Prime Minister's barrister chambers. And he couldn't be clearer. President Trump's actions in Venezuela are illegal. He says the United States, and I quote, is in breach of the United Nations Charter and has committed the crime of aggression, which the court at Nuremberg described as a supreme crime. Does the Prime Minister agree with his old mentor, or has he got it wrong?
Well, there's plenty of things that Geoffrey and I have agreed on and disagree with over the years, but let me set out our position. It is our long-standing position that Maduro was not a legitimate president in Venezuela. And so nobody, I think, sheds any tears at his removal. And what we need, what we were saying before the weekend, and we say again, is there needs to be a peaceful transition to democracy in Venezuela. Now, the benchmark of all actions of all countries is, of course, international law, and it is for the US to justify its actions accordingly. My focus is on the defence and security of the United Kingdom. And yesterday, we were working with NATO allies, including the US, on security guarantees for Ukraine. And it's only with security guarantees that we'll have a just and lasting peace in Ukraine, which is vitally important for Ukraine, for Europe, and for the United Kingdom.
Sir Ed Davey.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just looks ridiculous when he won't tell the truth that Trump has broken international law. But turning to Donald Trump's next target, the Prime Minister was right to give the Danish Prime Minister his backing over Trump's threats to annex Greenland, and I welcome his joint statement with other European leaders. But does he also agree that if Trump does attack Greenland, it will be the end of NATO? And given that frightening possibility, does he accept that the UK needs to increase defence spending more quickly than currently planned and build new alliances with reliable nations?
Mr. Speaker, let me be, the Greenland issue is obviously very, very important. I thank him for raising it. The future of Greenland is for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark, and for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. And yesterday, he will have seen that I put out a statement to that effect, along with fellow allies in Europe. And of course, NATO is hugely important, the single most effective and important military alliance the world has ever known. He keeps encouraging me to sort of tug away at parts of NATO and to choose between Europe and the US. That would be a strategic mistake for our country. And yesterday we were working with our NATO allies, including the US, our NATO ally, on a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. That will not happen without security guarantees from the coalition of the willing, backed by the United States. That's a vitally important issue, and we made progress on that. And there won't be a just and lasting peace in Ukraine without those security guarantees, and not achieving a just and lasting peace in Ukraine is not in our national interest, and that's why I'm applying so much time and energy to seeking to get that outcome.
Prime
Prime Minister, even its strongest advocates acknowledge that Northern Ireland is trapped in dysfunction, and not because reform is impossible, but because the DUP and Sinn Féin haven't allowed it. We've become a political Hotel California where the past is always around, but the future never arrives. There's growing public consensus that some of Stormont's procedures simply aren't working, and the SDLP has found slivers of common ground across the political parties too. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that now is the time for a structured conversation which protects power sharing but which addresses the culture of veto and decline, so Stormont might finally take responsibility and start to deliver for the people?
Well, can I thank her for her question? The Belfast Good Friday Agreement is one of the greatest achievements of the last Labour government, and it enshrined Northern Ireland's place in the United Kingdom and set out, as she well knows, I know, clear principles and processes under that framework. I'm aware of the Assembly and Executive Review Committee inquiry into institutional reform, but I can indicate that we're always happy to discuss any proposals for reform which would lead to a consensus.
Gavin Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, you will be aware of the grave concerns that abound around the Northern Ireland Troubles Bill, particularly amongst veterans and particularly among those who stand up for and speak out for the interests of those who defend our nation. And they have read the 6 protections in the bill and they don't see them as such. They offer no protection, they are procedural, and they apply to terrorists too.
They do.
So will the Prime Minister confirm that what we have heard is true, that the Ministry of Defence and the Northern Ireland Office intend to bring forward government amendments that will specifically and particularly protect veterans, and that they will offer protection?
Well, can I thank him for his question, and I know how deeply he feels about these issues. The bill, as he knows, will put in place new measures designed specifically to protect veterans. These safeguards have been developed with veterans in mind after carefully listening to their concerns. They have no respect at all, have they, for this issue? We've been meeting with veterans' organisations and listening to their views, and when the bill reaches the committee stages, the House will see the result of those considerations, and you'll be pleased to hear that. We're determined to ensure protections are as fair and effective as possible, recognising the role that service personnel played in keeping people across the UK safe during the Troubles, and I thank him for his question.
Rachel Muskell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having met with many independent business owners, they fear the cumulative impact of the rateable value revision and relief reductions. In York, hospitality sees an average business rate rise of 41%, a music venue 44.4%, and many independent shops increases around 27%. It will mean doors closing and trade ceasing. They just can't do it. So could the Prime Minister urgently review the business rate proposals, and will he ensure a minister or official attends my business rate summit at the end of January, as I want to avert a crisis on York's High Street?
Can I thank her for raising that issue? As she knows, during COVID, the rates went down, and that was coming to an end. And that's why we put in place interim relief as we move to the new rates. Mr. Speaker, we are continuing to work with and talk to the sector on that support and what further support and action we can take.
Sir Aldby.
Mr. Speaker, the period after Christmas can be a challenging time for many people, and consequently, the month of January consistently sees higher rates of suicide than at other times of the year. But suicide is preventable and lives can be saved. Education, raising awareness, targeting vulnerable groups are all effective suicide prevention strategies, and I was pleased to see them in the recent Men's Health Strategy. But I'm calling on the Government to go a step further and to launch a public health campaign to encourage discussions about suicidal thoughts and ideations. So will the Prime Minister agree to continue this conversation with me, and will he state his support for a public health campaign to tackle the worryingly high number of deaths from suicide in this country?
Can I thank her for raising this issue and assure her that we want to work with all colleagues across the House on this crucial issue, and it's in our interest to do so. We did, as she said, launch the first ever men's health strategy, announcing over £3.5 million into supporting suicide prevention support programmes, recruiting over 7,000 mental health workers, including access to talking therapies, rolling out mental health support teams in schools. It is vital that we raise awareness and increase the support available, and I can assure her ministers would be happy to discuss her proposals with her, because I genuinely want to work across the House on this really serious and tragic issue.
Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was very pleased to hear that the government's latest announcement about the rollout of the chickenpox vaccine. This, of course, is in stark contrast to the vaccine conspiracy theories being peddled by Reform. Does my right honourable friend agree that it is only with a Labour government that healthcare in this country is safe, and that Reform must never ever be in a position to be responsible for the health of this country?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased about the measures we're able to announce this week. Of course, that comes on top of the 5 million extra appointments that we've delivered in the first year of a Labour government, and 300,000 taken off the waiting list, and more to come as we turn the year into 2026. But he's absolutely right. They laugh at the denial of the importance of vaccines. Imagine where this country would be if they ever saw power. And if you want an example, what would it be like? Look at the local councils where they won power. They're absolutely chaotic, in a mess, and putting taxes up.
Peter Bedford. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unlike many of his parliamentary colleagues, I don't actually think the Prime Minister should resign. But at the start of a new year, it's time to reflect, reset, detox, if you will, on his government's appalling economic policies and tax rises, particularly business rates and the impact it's having on the hospitality sector. Now, will the Prime Minister commit to doing that today?
Mr. Speaker, I'll reflect on the fact that inflation is falling, and the Bank of England says that it's going to be down to target. I'll reflect on the fact we've had 6 interest rate cuts in a row. Mortgages, those with mortgages would be hugely effective. I'll reflect on the fact the IMF say we're going to have the second highest growth in 2025, defying the forecast. And I'd remind them that under them we had inflation at 11%, the worst parliament on living standards on record, and the Leader of the Opposition thinks that Liz Truss was 100% right to crash the economy. They're literally the only people who think that anybody should be listening to them. Nobody is.
John Baxter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Adrian Howe was a successful and dedicated Vodafone store manager of over 20 years. In 2017, he was offered the opportunity to take on a franchise of one of their thriving stores. But then the goalposts changed, and he was then forced to take on a struggling store. And just days before he was due to open that store, Adrian stepped into a lake and didn't ever return home. Adrian's wife and widow, my constituent Tracy, is wondering if the Prime Minister will review franchising legislation to ensure there is a balance of power between companies and the franchisees, so that nobody else feels undue pressure when they take on a franchise.
Can I thank her, and I speak for the whole House in saying I'm deeply sorry to hear about this tragic case, and all of our thoughts are with the family. Obviously, there's a live legal case I can't comment on, but I can reassure her that we'll look closely at the final outcome of that case. There are strong rules in place, but we will look at the outcome of the case to see whether there's more that can be done.
Alison Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Late last year, the cargo vessel Baltic Clipper lost 16 containers off the beautiful West Sussex coastline. Beaches and seas in my Bognor Regis and Littlehampton constituency have been polluted with toxic debris. The clean-up was initiated and led almost exclusively by resolute local volunteers. So will the Prime Minister join me in paying tribute to all those involved for their extraordinary efforts? And will he, or the relevant minister, meet with me to ensure that the coastline is restored and that local taxpayers will not pick up any costs?
Well, let me join her in paying tribute to the agencies and the local volunteers who supported the clean-up efforts. They're the very best, and I do pay tribute to them and join her in doing that. Liability sits with the polluter, and agencies and her local authority should work with the responsible party to recover the costs. I will make sure that she gets the meeting that she has asked it for with the appropriate minister.
Ian Hamilton.
Mr. Speaker, I recently met with bereaved constituents who lost their babies at Leeds Teaching Hospital's NHS Trust. Now, understandably, their confidence in the system is at an all-time low, and they want answers about the circumstances in which at least 56 babies and 2 mothers have died in recent years. So will the Prime Minister update the House on what steps he is taking to ensure that an inquiry uncovers the factors which led to these deaths, to confirm Donna Ockenden as chair of that inquiry, and to join me in paying tribute to the courageous families campaigning to ensure that nobody has to suffer the same tragedy again?
Well, can I start by saying every mother and baby deserves safe, high-quality, compassionate care. And I want to see the inquiry at Leeds start as soon as possible. We're working with bereaved families to shape our approach and to appoint a chair who they can trust, as he knows. I have a huge amount of respect for Donna Ockenden. She's an outstanding advocate for families. We'll make sure that we select a chair of the highest standard who has the independence and expertise needed to deliver the real change that is needed.
Angus MacDonald.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, according to the Office for National Statistics, 174,000 people under the age of 35 moved abroad in the year ending June 2025. In the Highlands, this problem is especially acute. Demographic statistics show that young people are not staying in the rural communities. Pupil numbers are down by 40 to 50% in the schools over the last 20 years. Rural depopulation and youth emigration are two sides of the same story: lack of opportunity. We have a demographic crisis. What is the Prime Minister doing to ensure the UK offers strong apprenticeship and skills pathways for young people? And does he agree that the SNP's failure in Scotland, diverting away 170 million intended for apprenticeships and skills development, shows exactly what happens when opportunity is not delivered?
Well, can I thank him and tell him, alongside the record settlement that we put in place for the Scottish Government, we're delivering huge investment in apprenticeships and offer a paid placement for every young person, which is vitally important. The SNP, on the other hand, blocked a welding facility in the Clyde because apparently it was related to defence. They don't back Scottish industry, young people or national security. We do.
Pam Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government is tackling patient waiting lists through NHS modernisation and reform. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that we need to tackle victim waiting lists by reforming our courts and criminal justice system?
Prime Minister.
Yes, I do, Mr. Speaker, and I've been working with victims of violence against women and girls for the best part of 20 years, and I've assured them time and again that if we get the opportunity, we would make the system work better for them. They have to wait far too long for justice, and in many cases they don't see justice at all. I'm absolutely determined that we're going to turn that around.
Final question, Winnie Morton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister promised not to bulldoze the countryside, but under Labour, green fields in Aldridge Brownhills, Donald Road, Birch Lane and Bosty Lane are now under threat. Will he accept that his housing target can be met without destroying our farmland and our countryside, but by reusing empty homes and brownfield land? Or was this just yet another promise he never meant to keep?
We're not going to plough through farmland. We're going to make sensible proposals to build houses, something they failed to do in 14 long years. So young people now have not got the dream of home ownership because the inheritance we got from them. We're going to turn that around.
Right, that completes Prime Minister's questions. Let the front bench change over.
Well, there we have it.
First Prime Minister's question time of the new year. Did it do it for you? Was Kemi Badenoch right to use all her questions to talk about international matters? Let us know what you think, but for now, let us go to join our political editor, Christopher Hope. Happy New Year, Christopher. What did you make of it?
Happy New Year to you, Gloria, and to you, of course, Tom. Yeah, I mean, ball politics is local. We are now 3 months away, or several months away from those local elections in May. Why give all your questions over to defence and security? It is very, very uncertain internationally. I think Kemi Badenoch did get that admission from the Prime Minister. There will be a vote of MPs before any troops are deployed in Ukraine. He'll also publish what he said was a legal instrument, which I take it to mean the legal advice, the justification for UK troops being deployed in Ukraine. Of course, that's after a peace deal is agreed, and presumably Russia must sign up to that too, so lots of hurdles to get to that point. She used that to go into the issue of defence spending. This government has committed to go to 3% of GDP by 2034 at the latest. She wants that brought forward, and so does Ed Davey, of course, the Lib Dem leader. So I think that pressure for increasing defence spending will be part of the drumbeat of this year, particularly with concerns about Greenland and whether that tears apart the NATO organisation. And just on, I thought, looking at the way the PM was, he was with me in Paris yesterday at the Élysée Palace. I got back very late last night in the small hours from there. He must be back too. He seemed a bit slow to get started. He was answering questions, the one before that Kemi Badenoch had asked, not the one he had just had. I think he was slowly trying to get back into that bear pit, that frame of trying to be on it every single time. Kemi Badenoch came out the stocks and attacked him, but he seemed to find his way, didn't he, when he talked about Ben Wallace, the former Tory Defence Secretary, saying how defence had been hollowed out under the Tories and under Labour, and also attacking, of course, David Wilson for his work with Abramovich in Jersey on a related issue. That allowed Sir Keir Starmer to say, why are you not supporting the idea of using that Chelsea money to pay for the work in Ukraine? So he found his way, I think. It was quite a rude awakening for Sir Keir Starmer, but possibly after international travel, to have that bear pit of PMQs. And just very finally, he did also show some leg for pubs. We're so worried at GBNews, our viewers and listeners are worried about pubs in April when they're seeing a huge increase in their business rates. The PM said they are reviewing what action they can take on business rates. So that's a bit further than he told me on Monday. On Monday he said they might look at allowing licensees to open for longer, trade longer, but now we're hearing for the first time more action on business rates itself. Will they increase, will they allow that period of discount rates that carried on since COVID to go on for another year or two? We'll wait and see.
Yeah, we'll watch this space very carefully, but hopefully not so carefully that we see the Prime Minister's leg. Thank you very much, Christopher Hope, live from Westminster Hall there. Well, we're joined in our Westminster studio by the Labour MP for Peterborough, Andrew Pakes, and the Conservative MP for the Isle of Wight East, Joe Robertson. Welcome to Prime Minister's Questions Live. Now, let's start with you, Andrew. Tom, great name, by the way, has written in to say, if Starmer is so keen on international law, why does he think it's OK for people to illegally enter the country on small boats?
Well, I hope that wasn't you writing your own questions, Tom. Look, Happy New Year. Welcome to be back to you, and Happy New Year to Christopher. Glad he got back late last night. And I'm really pleased that when the Prime Minister started this year setting out his priorities, that personal safety and immigration and how people feel about our towns and cities like mine was top of the agenda. It is clear that too many people are coming to this country through illegal boats and coming across, and it's the priority of this government to try and tackle that. That's why we started this week with the new regulations in place, which means we can now take the mobile phones off of people coming over on the small boats, so we can get the information out there. And if they've got details about gangs, if it leads to criminality, we've got a chance to try and go upstream and break some of those gangs so we can crack down, not just stop people coming here, but also get the backlog down so we can get people out the back door at the same time.
Isn't the problem, though, that this smash the gangs policy doesn't seem to have worked? The numbers are up in 2025 compared to 2024. 41,472 individuals coming across by a small boat. Is the issue here that actually it's not the gangs that are the problem at all? It's not that people are being dragged across the UK against their will. It's that these people want to come to the UK, and if you smash one gang, another one will pop up to fill that market demand.
Look, we've got to smash the gangs, we've got to break the criminality, we've also create deterrents for people coming here in the first place. You're absolutely right, Tom. Live on GB News, you're absolutely right. This isn't a simple problem with a simple light switch on-off question to get it right. It's about patience, it's about being serious, it's about taking the time. Smashing the gangs is a critical part of that, as well as getting the backlogs down so we can shut hotels like in my constituency and get people out. we're cracking down on it. We brought the new laws in, which started this week. We got that through the legislation to do that. We've got more people leaving the country who shouldn't be here than we have done under the previous government. It's a work in progress, but we're focused on it for this year.
Jo Robertson from the Conservatives, welcome back. It's always great to have you on the show. I don't think anyone would say that the first year of the Labour government and its record on people coming in illegally on small boats is anything other than absolutely terrible, absolutely catastrophic. But we have a new Home Secretary who has proposed, she has sent her officials to Denmark, which is widely recognised to have the toughest system in Europe. And has taken loads of those measures. Obviously, it's going to take a bit of time to implement them, but it's the toughest measures that have ever been proposed in this country for decades. You must welcome that. Shabana Mahmood is going far further than the last Conservative government ever did.
So the last year, 41,000 people came across in small boats. That's an entire year under the Labour government. Look, when the Home Secretary announced her proposals in the House of Commons in November, December time, I was there and I support a lot of what she says she's going to do. But there is a huge hole in her plan, and that is what to do with failed asylum seekers who cannot be returned to their home country because there is no agreement, there is no means of getting them there. We're talking about people from Afghanistan, people from Iran and people from Eritrea. Now, previous government had a third-party arrangement, a third country, where there would be an agreement that those failed asylum seekers would go there. She has no plan for that. She scrapped the Rwanda plan and has nothing to replace it. She says she's talking to other countries.
She does.
But she still hasn't told us who she's talking to and when a deal may be struck. She's ruled out Rwanda, the only country in the world she said she will not talk to. So until we know what she's going to do with failed asylum seekers who come from some of the most populous countries in terms of origin, the source of the origin country of the immigrants, we can't take her plan seriously. And instead what the government did, announced on the 28th of December that they had done a deal with the Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola and Namibia. Do you know how many illegal arrivals were from those three countries last year? 14. It's pathetic. She's hoodwinking the British people, and they won't stand for it.
Jo Robertson, perhaps the arguments that you have just made, perhaps that would have been better territory for Kemi Badenoch to use the first Prime Minister's question time of this session to talk about. We've got lots of questions in on boats, on pubs. Was it right for her to use all of her 6 questions on international matters?
So in the new year, 2026, there are so many huge issues as we arrive back in Westminster this week. And nothing more serious, I think, than the prospect of deploying British troops on European soil in Ukraine, something that the Prime Minister has said that he's prepared to do. And also Donald Trump's statement of intent or suggestion around Greenland and what he's done in Venezuela. So I think the international picture that we find ourselves in was a very legitimate set of questions to go on. And I think you find that Kemi Badenoch as well showed that she is versatile, that it's not always about the most politically expedient question of the day. There are some really important questions of substance. And she wanted the Prime Minister to make a statement on the prospect of British troops being deployed to Ukraine. And he said he'll do that in due course. I think he should have done it today.
Well, on that point, Andrew, Peter has written in to ask, no one's asking why only France and Britain are prepared to send troops to back up this peace plan. Aren't there supposed to be dozens of countries in this so-called coalition of the willing? Where's Germany, Italy, Austria, etc., etc.? It appears that once again Britain has a Prime Minister happy to put British lives in harm's way without getting other countries to make the same commitment.
Well, I'm really proud to be supporting a government that is putting defence of Ukraine as a key issue for Europe and for our country. We know it backwashes on what happens on European soil in Ukraine led to fuel prices going up in the United Kingdom. These global issues often have very local issues in my constituency when people fill up the pump or put their heating on. We know it's a big issue for us. So I'm glad that Britain is playing a part. But look, this is the point. Joe just said the Prime Minister is prepared to put troops on the ground. There isn't a plan yet. There isn't a ceasefire in place. The Prime Minister gave a clear commitment that he will come forward when we have details so that the Parliament can discuss it, whether that's Kemi, Badenoch or myself and Joe being able to ask questions as parliamentarians. This is a time for a serious leadership, and I think with Keir Starmer today we saw that serious leadership in action.
Keir Starmer wasn't in Parliament on Monday. He left it to the Foreign Secretary to answer questions for 2 hours and 15 minutes from MPs. He, of course, was abroad yesterday. Normally, when a Prime Minister goes abroad, the next day they come back and they take questions for an extended period of time from members across the House, not just this 30 minutes for Prime Minister's questions, but a proper debrief for an international visit. The Prime Minister himself has done it before on countless occasions.
Look,
why not today?
You saw from this exchange, this is fast-moving. The Prime Minister gave a very clear commitment that he will come before the House for an extensive briefing and answer questions, and there will be a chance for MPs to debate and vote on some of those proposals. But we've got to have a ceasefire in place. We've got to have a serious plan, and then we can look at the details of it.
Okay. I think the issue here is...
I want to bring in pubs before we go, so if you can be brief on this, because loads of people wanted to ask about pubs today.
Yeah, so the Prime Minister says MPs will get a chance if ever there's a proposal to actually deploy troops. But what the Prime Minister has said today is there is a political agreement. He signed up to something. So it's only right that he explains to MPs what it is. If it's an agreement, there must be something in that, even if it's an agreement in principle.
It's been published.
And that we should be able to question him on that.
Read it.
And he should be... I'm sorry, government's a bit more than about publishing a piece of paper. You should be able to come before members of Parliament and face questions
which he just
on
did.
It.
OK. Let's move on to pubs. Lots of you have raised concerns about your local pub. Today, the government have published a road safety strategy. In that is the proposal to bring down the drink driving limit, which some people say, if you have it, you won't even be able to have a pint of, if it's sort of strong lager, that would be too much. Perhaps a large glass of wine, that would be too much if you bring it down. Ray has said, I live in a rural area. I drive to my local a couple of times a week for a couple of pints. There is infrequent transport. The buses stop at 8 o'clock. Do you support the reduction of the drink drive limit that the government are proposing?
So I genuinely would like to see the outcome of the consultation on this. There's absolutely an issue here of transport in rural areas. It's a much bigger issue in rural areas because of the lack of public transport and the way that it's provided in urban areas. But I think if, broadly speaking, if someone is going to the pub for a couple of pints, and that's the purpose of going to the pub, they probably shouldn't be driving. And I am open-minded to this idea that effectively it would be the end of going to the pub to drink and getting behind a wheel. Clearly, there would need to be some minimum level by which, and I think this happens in countries where there is no drink driving, there's a limit that covers for if you've had, I know, food that's been cooked in red wine, etc. We're not talking about an absolute zero, but we're talking about effectively the end of drinking pints.
Look, I agree with Joe on much of that. Look, one of the most heartbreaking things an MP can have is to sit with a parent or a loved one who's lost one of their children or a family member in a road accident. I think it's around about 230, 260 people die on our roads each year. So it's a serious issue. And we've got to balance that up, and I think that's what the consultation will look at.
We already have the lowest driving deaths in the G7, even per person.
It's still too high, Tom. I'm sorry. As an MP who gets to sit down with people and meet campaigners and meet families and relatives...
But that's probably people who are drunk, like really drunk, not people who have gone...
There are all sorts of accidents and people take all sorts of ideas. It needs to be looked at. So consultation is the right way to get into that place, but it's right we look at it.
Happy New Year to you guys. It's lovely to have you both back. Come back again, Andrew Pakes and Joe Robertson. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sending in your brilliant questions. Don't go anywhere.
Absolutely. Up next, it's Good Afternoon Britain with me for another 2 hours and the one and only Nana Akweer. See you in a second.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Staying cold today, showers for some, but actually bright for many with some sunshine coming through. We are in between weather systems at the moment, one low departing. That brought some rain, sleet and snow during Tuesday. Another frontal system starting to move in. This is going to bring some rain later on. But ahead of that, we're going to see plenty of sunny spells for many. One exception continues to be the northeast of Scotland, where some significant snow showers will continue to build up in the far northeast. Meanwhile, it's going to be feeling cold with a brisk breeze and temperatures of 4 to 6 Celsius fairly widely, lower than that over snow-covered parts of northern UK. And we're going to see a continued build-up of snow for some parts of Caithness, Orkney, as well as the northeast of Aberdeenshire. But these showers will be very localised. We'll see mostly clear conditions elsewhere as we end the afternoon and go into the evening. Exception being Northern Ireland, West Wales and the southwest, where cloud will arrive. And these outbreaks of rain, a few flakes of snow associated with this over higher parts of Northern Ireland and perhaps Wales, but mostly this is rain, and it's patchy rain. It's going to fizzle away overnight, but it will bring a lot of cloud in, and that cloud will mean that many places will be frost-free, particularly towards central and western parts of the country. The frost confined mostly to the east, with temperatures dipping below freezing and a few icy patches first thing. Now, Thursday starts with that cloud cover, but it will brighten up in the east, and that's where we keep mostly dry and bright weather through the day. Meanwhile, rain arrives into the southwest, some heavy rain, strengthening winds as well. They could be an issue in the far southwest, but the main concern is the snow across Wales and the Midlands.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's a brand new year and we're giving you the chance to win our biggest cash prize to date.
£85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
And we've come to the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland to celebrate.
An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
The University of Bristol has been threatened with legal action by a leading academic who led a recent government review into sex and gender data collection.
Well, Professor Alice Sullivan claims her freedom of speech was restricted after a talk she gave was disrupted by a trans rights protest.
Protesters actually scaled the walls of the building. We were in a first-floor lecture theatre, and they climbed the walls in order to bang on the windows and sort of howl through the windows. It felt incredibly surreal in there. It was like some kind of zombie apocalypse. And they were setting off fire alarms to very loudly disrupt my talk. Eventually, we had to all move to another lecture theatre. And I learned afterwards that people trying to attend the talk had been severely disrupted by protesters who were not asked to stand behind barriers or anything like that. They were just allowed to intimidate and obstruct people who had come to hear me speak.
It sounds like a fairly severe dereliction of duty on behalf of the university. I mean, obviously everyone has a right to protest anything, and you'd think at a university anyone would have a right to give a talk, and yet there is this sort of heckler's veto that some try to play to try and keep out ideas with which they disagree. I mean, it seems to just go against the fundamental ethos of what higher education should be in this country.
That's absolutely right. I mean, I fully fully support people's right to peaceful protest, but this was not a peaceful protest.